Over my years working at our rural community hospital in upstate New York, I've delivered roughly 12,000 newborns. But there are some truly unique cases that just stick with you. Among them, my only set of triplets. That's the one I want to tell you about in detail. It was a young couple, expecting their first child. The father, an aviation mechanic, had been assigned to our small local airfield, bringing them to our little town. They lived in a tiny apartment in a converted barrack-style building. The mother, Anya, was from New York City. She was an energetic, bright redhead and stunningly beautiful. You wouldn't call her anything but a girl. Anya's husband, Ben, was originally from Arizona. He was stocky, calm, even a little easygoing. It was amazing, but in those, now distant, less complicated times, it was perfectly normal. Early in the pregnancy, they'd learned they were expecting twins. Because of this, Anya planned to go back to the city to her mother for the delivery. However, labor started early, at 32 weeks, and it happened to be on my shift when Anya was admitted to our maternity ward. At that time, the main maternity building was temporarily closed for its annual deep cleaning, so we were operating out of the gynecology department. The attending obstetrician was Dr. Eleanor Vance, a wonderful and experienced doctor. During a visual examination, Dr. Vance suspected the babies were not positioned correctly. This meant a natural birth could be extremely dangerous for them. That's when we decided on a C-section. We even did an X-ray to accurately determine the babies' positions. As early ultrasounds had shown, we saw two babies. One was head down, the other breech. Convinced the situation was predictable, we all headed to the operating room. The first baby, a boy, weighing 3 pounds 12 ounces, was delivered. While the nurse and I were providing him with the necessary care, our colleagues delivered the second boy, weighing 3 pounds 9 ounces. We hadn't even finished with the first two when I heard the obstetrician's voice behind me, "Get ready for the third." I wasn't in the mood for jokes. The boys were already fragile. I think I even muttered a few uncharitable words to the jokers on the team. But a second loud exclamation made me jump and turn around sharply. And, oh yes, they were handing me a third baby. It was a little girl weighing 3 pounds 1 ounce. To say I was stunned would be an understatement. How was this possible? She hadn't been seen during the examination or on the X-rays. It turned out the boys were lying side by side along the length of the uterus, and right beneath them, lying transversely, was their tiny sister, which is why she hadn't been visible. Those little gentlemen were truly protecting their lady from curious eyes. Only then did we realize that if Dr. Vance hadn't insisted on surgery, the babies likely wouldn't have survived. We took the little girl, and the nurse and I continued to care for all 3 babies. Our temporary ward wasn't equipped for such a mass arrival. We only had one incubator, a special crib for premature infants. So we put all 3 of them in there. They all fit. I stayed by the baby's side all night. I was so worried. By morning, their condition had stabilized. In the morning, the ward phone rang. I was near the door. A handsome man in a pilot's uniform walked through the open doorway. "Who was born to me?" was his first question. "Congratulations, you have 2 sons." I paused for a moment. "And a daughter." The information took a while to sink in for the father. He repeated it several times as if mentally and somewhat sluggishly muttering to himself, "Aha, 2 sons. And a daughter? 2 sons. I got that. A daughter? I don't get it. So there are 3 of them?" "Well, kind of. Yes," I tried to say as convincingly as possible. He slowly began to slide down the wall. We helped him onto a chair and gave him water. You could understand the father. They had just arrived for his job assignment, started working, hadn't earned much money yet, their living space was tiny, and now triplets. The babies stayed in the ward for quite a long time, gaining the necessary weight and recovering their health. I loved visiting their room. admiring nature's miracle. Despite there being 3 children, they were always well cared for and fed. Anya was always neat and always had a happy smile on her face. This was the first set of triplets in our little town. The couple was incredibly lucky. The local administration immediately provided them with a 3-bedroom apartment in a new development and furnished it with everything they needed. What's more, for the first few months, they even assigned a private nurse to their family. But of course, the main role in this story belonged to Anya. A young woman of amazing beauty, she raised all her little ones and saw them thrive. About 10 years later, I happened to be in the emergency room waiting area of the hospital. At that moment, Anya walked into the hospital with her children. It turned out they had come to visit their father. 2 dark-haired boys, looking very much like their dad, unhurriedly and importantly walked into the department. And right behind them, a bright red-headed and incredibly spry, smiling little girl ran in, an absolute copy of her mother. I can't tell you how joyful it was to see this wonderful family, and I felt as though my hands could still feel the warmth emanating from those beautiful children. I could still hear the beating of their tiny hearts.